Hello there, Seraphim17 once again. This is my Devil May Cry 4, Dante Must Die difficulty, triple S rank walkthrough. This is mission 13, The Devil Returns. So, that previous mission, by the way, as sloppy as it was one attempt. It was the very first time I'd plugged the game in a couple of weeks. And then playing as a character who I'd not played as in a couple of years, and boom, still managed to get the triple S rank on the first attempt. So I'm hoping it's really motivating people to realise that this is not as insane as it sounds, and that this game, compared to the other ones, is considerably easier to do and much, much more accessible. So when you drop down here, you're going to have your first blitz fight with Dante. I like to stand behind him, because if you stand in front of him while you do this, he can punch you out, which is kind of appropriate. But if you use your climax on Lucifer, you can immediately take off his electricity, and then you can fuck up thinking you had Swordmaster on when you have the Royal Guard on. Which would have been great if he'd attacked me, but he didn't. Instead, he did this fantastic thing where he moves around erratically and winds me up to something no end. Then I fight over swapping through the weapons, because I'm not a big fan of having to cycle through 3 weapons rather than 2. And then I get beat up a little bit more, so it would seem that we're still sloppy at this point, but we'll get there in the end. So, a lot of people have trouble fighting blitzers. I've said before, my blitz record is either I destroy them without taking any damage and I get a triple S ranking and it's super easy and looks amazing, or I get absolutely bummed. That was a bit of both right there, so maybe that's not true. I don't think there's any middle ground with blitzers. You either have a good fight or you have a bad one. But once he's dead, you can push over into this next area. I'm not going to be picking up all the pods just yet, because this next fight killed me a few times. So, these are the Chimeran Assaults. And I think they're the hardest enemy on the game, because they suck. They just suck, you know. I don't know anybody who can defend this enemy for what it does, because it's just not fun to fight. It's everything against what Devil May Cry is. You know, there's never really been enemies that passively attack you while they're being attacked. The whole point of these games is when you get that attack on them, you either stun them or launch them, and then you capitalise on that stun. You don't stun them and still get hurt. It's not how these games have ever really been. Yet this enemy is just, it doesn't really care. And the weird thing about them is sometimes they die really quickly and it's dead easy, other times they just bum you. The 2 ways I've found that's really good at fighting them: shoot them till you knock them down, then hit them with drive. If you go into Devil Trigger while you drive, they can't interrupt you, and it's going to save your life too. Another way to get them is to Devil Trigger Real Impact them and distort it. But, you know, sometimes it works perfectly, sometimes it doesn't. Like, I had a couple of fights against these enemies that went really well. I have some fights where they didn't. It's just one of those things. I've never liked that enemy. But drive is super good against them, so is distorted real impacts, you know. If you were Nero, I feel like this fight would be much easier. But then again, I also feel that if you were Nero during these levels, this game would be much easier, because Nero is easy mode, he truly is. When you swap to Dante, it becomes a completely different game. It becomes a Devil May Cry at that point. And I'm conflicted about it in a few ways, because I really like Dante, I do. But in this game I prefer Nero. And I think I prefer him because he plays nothing like Dante. So it gives you the Devil May Cry experience, but it gives you it from a different perspective. And I think that's what made this game as much fun as it was for me. And you could say that Nero is effectively Dante, because he looks, you know, he looks like a young Dante in a lot of ways. He's got the attitude and the white hair, and he's a demon and he kicks ass and all that kind of stuff. Well, is he a demon, or does he just have a demon arm? I forget. But he plays so uniquely, and it makes the game feel really different. And then you come back to Dante, and I think it's a bit of a sour taste in your mouth. And not in a bad way, because the funny thing is, by the end of playing with Dante, you're kind of good with him, and you understand how to play the game with him, and it's, you know, it's a different game at that point. And then they make you play as Nero again, and then you've forgotten what you're doing. It's the ultimate, like, confusing game progression ever. And I think everybody had that feeling when they first played it. Like, no matter how good you were at the previous Devil May Cry's, you came to this one, and the first half of the game confused you. The second half of the game reminded you of what you used to be able to do, and then you were back into being confused again. It was really interesting. And I think that's why a lot of people didn't like the new one, because the new Devil May Cry gets so much hate, it's unbelievable. And towards the end of that game's lifespan for me, I personally did not enjoy the game that much. And, you know, my opinions of it soured. But I'll never forget how much fun I had when I was playing it, you know, for the first few times. And I had a lot of fun. But I think that game gets so much shit that's just not even deserved. And I think a lot of it stems from the fact that you're playing as Dante in a Devil May Cry game that feels absolutely nothing like a Devil May Cry game. And they did try to give it the elements that made the older ones great. And they did it in their own way, and I still to this day commend them for doing that. You know, I commend them for having the courage to do it, and I'm curious how they feel now in the face of this, because they obviously must get a lot of emails, they must obviously see a lot of the forums, a lot of the videos of some insanely angry fans levelling some insane ad hominem nonsense towards a game that really was a good game, that was hindered by its legend, by its legacy. Oh, you can't shoot the thing on the other side for some reason. I think that purple mist is like a barrier. And I do think it's a shame, because there's people who say, I was in a stream the other day with a lot of people saying this, that Devil May Cry the reboot is worse than Devil May Cry 2. And I just can't imagine anybody saying that. Is Devil May Cry 2 a bad game? No. It's an average game. But it's a terrible Devil May Cry. Why is Devil May Cry 2 bad? Because it does nothing that made those games good. It extends and elaborates on some of those features, but it puts it in an environment that is both mechanically and creatively different to what Devil May Cry was. If you're curious what I'm doing there, by the way, to cut things quickly, you can cancel animations on this game with Royal Guard. It's quicker than cancelling it with the jump. You can cancel the shotgun after you've fired, you can cancel the slash after you've slashed. There's definitely a timing to it, it just speeds up the entire process. This right here is a fight I recommend skipping. Once again, I hate this enemy. Anytime I can avoid them, I'm going to avoid them. In fact, if you could avoid that other fight with them, I think I would have done that, because I just completely despise them. Don't worry about the collectibles you have to break here. You will come back into this area because it's one of those bizarre, go the opposite way your shadows facing rooms. But Devil May Cry pulled the camera out on the second one. It pulled it out to a perspective that was the complete antithesis to the claustrophobic survival horror homages of the original. Instead of the enemies being, you know, small in number but incredibly creative and interesting and developed, they were large in number with completely unpronounceable names and entirely uninspired aesthetics, except for the wolf guy. He was cool. Like, the swords and the combos on the game all felt underwhelming. They didn't feel satisfying. They weren't interesting. They all intrinsically responded the exact same. Like, it was just everything that made the last game interesting was not there. The precision, the mechanics, the inspiration, it was all gone. It was really bad. And I know there's a lot of people who like that game and they have to defend it because they feel like they need to. I just don't think you can, because I think it's a very, very average and poor title. But the new game, even if you hate Dante, even if you hate like the fuck you, no, fuck you parts of it, and you know, even if you hate everything about it, the game, from a fundamental mechanical point, is still far superior to Devil May Cry 2. In every way, it is far closer to what Devil May Cry is. And that to me is just, it's fact. You know, it can't be refuted. It makes me wonder if these people played these games. By the way, my strategy here is not really a good one. I just use the crazy Lucifer attack against her. I spam it to stun her. and do a poor job of evading the annoying tentacles. And if you get a stun off on her, you can proceed to do some interesting combos should you choose to. Do not use the distorted real impacts because you don't hit her with the final hit, and the final hit is missing massive amounts of damage. But now she's stunned, you can go into some different moves if you want to. Somebody left a comment saying that Prop Shredder is really good against her. I can't say I've ever really done it. Someone also mentioned that you can deflect the seeds that she fires at you, which is something I didn't know you could do. And she fires a lot of those seeds in the latter parts of this fight, so you can do that should you choose to. Ooh, the camera's not very good right then. One thing I would love to see these games have is a toggleable lock-on. I think once you get used to toggle lock-on, you just can't go back. It can't be done. And I'm very confused at Platinum, because it's almost like the left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing with their dev studio when it comes to certain parts of their games. And I get accused of being a Platinum fanboy, which is ridiculous, because a fanboy is somebody who defends irrationally absolutely everything about something they like because they can't see past their own obsession. I am not that person. I just really like good games, and Platinum makes some of the best on the market. And I'll continue this tangent in the next video, because I really don't know what I'll be talking about then, so I might as well keep this topic. Make sure you shoot all of these glowing ballsacky things, because if you don't, you will not get the S rank on the orbs, and you'll have to play this level more times than you probably want to. I believe I had to do this level about 3 or 4 times. One time I died to the Chimeran hybrids, the rest of the times were failing the orb requirement. I think that's why I didn't enjoy this as much as I thought I would, because I had no idea how much I'd have to replay levels that I got SSA on because of the orbs. And it's purely because I don't know where they are. You know, I don't have a backlog of knowledge for that. And it's my fault, but it's still frustrating. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you for listening. You take care now.